Greetings, my magnificent ones. Sue Paulson here, your Magnificence mentor, speaking to you from the Magnificence Lab. Oh, wow, here we are, latter part of August, and summer is just speeding along. I can feel a little nip in the air where I live, and it just has given me pause to think about, all right, what's next? I started a little group a couple of months ago, a local meetup group called Inner Wisdom Connectors. In our last meeting, towards the end of our discussion of the topic I'd chosen, there was some interest in NDEs, in near-death experiences. I was a little bit surprised in a way about how much interest there really was. You could visibly watch people light up as they're starting to ask questions and talk about it. So I thought it was time to address this in our Heaven on Earth series. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. So I've called this Learning from NDEs. Now, it is true that only a small percentage of the population have actually experienced what has been labeled a near-death experience, meaning that maybe they reached the brink of death and had this experience where they went somewhere else, or there was an out-of-body experience, or a variety of things could have happened, or maybe even they were declared legally dead and came back to life. So there's as many people as have experienced it, that's as many different kinds of experiences people do have. There's an even smaller percentage will actually ever talk about having had that. Although now that the door has opened and a few brave souls have come out and spoken about those experiences they've had, then it just lends some courage, I think, to other people to share what they've experienced. You can have just a smaller experience than a great big one. It doesn't matter the size of it. The one thing that is, well, there are several things that are common, and we're going to talk about that in the nature of having gone through one of these. And one of them that's pretty common is it can be such a life-changing event. I would call it a significant emotional event. So I'm speaking from experience. I had a near-death experience in 2007. It rocked my world and changed it in ways that I never, ever would have imagined. It was as if everything I had been taught to believe, did believe, was wrong, flat out wrong. And so it was a very upside down kind of experience, which took me a lot of years to process, to run through my own belief system, my own feelings, my own intuitive connections, and a fair bit of reading and research to discover what this was all about. I even sought a spiritual counselor at one point to guide me through the somewhat murky waters, because I never met anybody else who'd had this kind of experience. So it was shocking and startling, to say the least. Now, so what I want to talk about today is what we can learn, whether we ever have our own NDE or we just read about it or listen about it from other people. There are lessons to be learned from this. And I kind of wonder if perhaps the number of people that are coming forward to talk about what they experienced is another way of waking all of us up to the reality of what it's like to be a spiritual being in human form. So I've been doing this Heaven on Earth series for a while now, and Why heaven on earth? Because heaven was so incredibly amazing and filled every fiber of my being with unconditional love and joy and peace, that I thought, well, why would we wait? Yeah, I know what we're going to or going back to. That's home. Why would we wait? Could we not experience that right here on earth? So hence my own personal quest to move in this direction. Well, it seems a few of you are wanting to do the same thing. So let's just talk about a couple of the things that I have found to be in common, regardless of the experience itself. What does everybody understand or experience when they take that trip to the other side, the afterlife, whatever, heaven, whatever you want to call it? Excuse me. The first and probably all-encompassing thing is unconditional love. So what is unconditional love? Well, it's the biggest love anyone can ever imagine, with no conditions. No conditions whatsoever. And every being on the planet, every blade of grass, every insect, every animal, you name it, is part of that unconditional love. There's this enveloping of all of that. And it's so vast and so big that really it's indescribable. The feeling that I got from that, being immersed in that unconditional love for a brief period, was indescribable. There are no English words that can really communicate that. Just know it was vast and it was big. Now, do you have to earn unconditional love? Well, no, because it's unconditional. This was the first piece of programming that got challenged when I experienced this unconditional love, because I had been brought up to believe that if I served others to the best of my ability, if I improved myself away from my weaknesses and the things that as a puny human I was, to be better than I was, then that would earn me a place. That eventually, and I can remember thinking as a youngster, well, obviously God isn't really talking to me because I'm not good enough yet. And so I was striving to be good enough. And and of course there were days when I thought, oh, what's the point? And I wouldn't be that good. But then I go back to think, oh well, I'll just try harder. I'll just do more. I'll read more. I'll take more courses. I'll do more good works. And the list went on and on and on. Well, there I am at the tender age of 57 in this sea of unconditional love, with the very clear message: Sue, you already have a place because you are a child of God. You are this amazing, magnificent being that is an integral part of the whole. You don't have to do anything to be that. You already are that. You just forgot. And that was hard to take in because I thought, well, then if that's true and what I believe to be true isn't, I've spent most of my life trying to measure up when I already did. Well, if that's true for me, that's true for you. So I'm not the only one who is a child of God. Every person, every human on earth is that. And we can't escape it. We can't separate it from it, even though some try by doing heinous acts and all of that sort of thing, or we ignore it or push it away or bathe in our own sea of unawareness. But the fact remains, and I'm saying that it's a fact because I felt it at heart level. So I'm sure there are some logic and reason people who would want to argue their way out of that. But I know what I know for me. And so you can call it my opinion, you can call it craziness, doesn't really matter to me. I just have this unshakable knowing about this, about unconditional love, and that you deserve it. I deserve it simply because we are parts of the whole. In the whole universe, we are facets of that universe. And in human form, we've taken on a mighty task in working with how we can create, how we can move forward. So that's the first lesson that I got as a big, and I'm still learning from that because it's taken me a while to chew on that. I went into research mode to say, is anybody else saying the same thing? Like, what's going on here? So that was number one. The second one, which was part of the idea of unconditional love and was important to pinpoint, was that judgment does not exist in the heavenly realm, that there is no judgment. We have been gifted with free will when we come to planet Earth. And that's exactly what it is. Free will is free will. Free will isn't, well, you have free will as long as you follow God's laws. That's not free. That's conditional. That's conditional love. And that is, there's an element of judgment in that. Well, as long as you don't step out of line, as long as you follow society's dictates, as long as you're a good person, as long as, you know the list, it's long. Well, no judgment. So what does that mean in human form? Well, we come here for contrast. There's no question about that. That there's light, there's dark, there's what we perceive to be the quotes right way of doing something and quotes the wrong way of doing something. Well, how do we come to that? So we start with preferences when we're babies of, well, I prefer peas over carrots. I don't like the taste of broccoli, but I really like the taste of applesauce. So we start from that. I feel better when I'm warm. I don't feel as good when I'm cold. Well, where does the judgment, and there's nothing wrong with that. We discern all the time and say, yes, this, not that, when it comes to picking out a car. Well, I like this color better than that color. I want these bells and whistles. I don't want those bells and whistles. And so we're always choosing. We're always having preferences, one thing over another. Where the challenge is, though, is when we judge those preferences, particularly other people's preferences. It is just an insidious kind of thing. So do I say you're a bad person because you hate carrots? Well, what would be the point? Well, you don't like carrots. Okay, well, I'll eat the carrots then. You eat whatever you like. And so, but we get all wrapped up in, well, I think we tend to become very possessive about our choices, our preferences, what works for us, and sometimes forget that other people have the full right and the full responsibility to pick their choices, to pick what works for them. So to exert their free will in the direction that means the most to them, that works for them. So here we have free will. sometimes when we pick, the consequences of what we pick don't work out that well. We don't like what the consequences are. So we get to pick again. And this is where I think sometimes we get wrapped up in the judgment and punishment of things. So I've learned from very early that if I hurt someone else, either physically or I say something that hurts their feelings, hurts their heart, if my behavior comes across as mean, it hurts me because I see the look on their face. I can feel the hurt kind of rolling off them in waves, and maybe they retaliate and hurt me in return. Who knows how that plays out? But the consequences of my behavior, I do need to pay attention to. If the consequences are not what I want, not what's desirable, not what works in the world that I travel in on a day-to-day basis, then I need to change my behavior. So if I'm speeding down the highway and I get stopped and I get a fat fine, and I'm thinking, oh, I can speed if I want to. Yeah, I might get a ticket, but I'll keep speeding. And I go down the highway again and I get another ticket and I get another ticket and I get another ticket. Eventually, I might get the message and say, oh, maybe speeding is not such a good idea. Or maybe one of them resulted in a car crash that was particularly bad and I got hurt, or somebody else got hurt. Well, that's the consequences of the choices that we make. Is it good or bad? It's kind of irrelevant, really. It's not about labeling whether something is good or bad, right or wrong. It's about saying, well, I did that. I took that action. I made that choice. How did it serve me? Did it serve me well? Or do I need to go back to the drawing board and pick again, draw out a different scenario? Like, how is that? And you've seen it in movies. They portrayed it in movies like Groundhog Day, where the guy lives this thing over and over and over again. There's a lesson in there somewhere. Well, we're all experiencing things in order to grow. I mean, that's kind of prime directive one, that we come to planet Earth to experience, to learn, to grow. And we learn by making choices. Some of our choices are not turning out the way we wanted. Other choices, wow, fantastic. So that's how we learn, by picking one thing and saying, that wasn't such a good thing. Oh, well, let's pick again. And then we pick again. So to suspend judgment on something, to say, well, I'm not going to place a judgment on it, good, bad, right, or wrong. I'm simply going to learn from the consequences of that choice and see what happens. And I think when we teach our kids this, they have more personal power. They tap into more personal power. They already have lots of personal power. They just aren't aware of it. Then they begin to use that power in a more loving way, a way that serves them and serves others. So back to the idea of we are loved unconditionally just because we are human, or spirit in human form. We don't have to do anything to have that love. It's just a given. It's just the same as we have uh, sunshine, the same as we have, well, here we have snow in the winter and heat in the summer. And so it's just as inevitable as the next day and the next day and the next day. That love is just set there. Where I struggled the most with that was when the recognition came that I hadn't had to do anything to have that love. There was nothing to earn, even though I had tried for most of my 57 years when I became conscious enough that it's important to do good works. From everything I learned at my mother's knee and my grandmother's knee and so on was, oh no, good works are really important. It's important that you serve others. And that was kind of part of the ticket to heaven. When I realized that that was not true, I'm going, oh, well, then what has my whole life been about? Because even though I was working in an arena that gave me a great deal of satisfaction and joy, I was teaching, I was putting out my ideas for growth and helping, doing what I could to help lots of people in changing attitudes and beliefs and going new directions. In the back of my mind, there was a part of me that said, okay, you're doing this because it's another thing that will add to the good list, right? So the book of judgment, like there's, okay, here's all the bad things a person did, and here's all the good things a person did. Well, of course, I'm stacking up on the good side. So I thought, only to discover there is no book. There's no book of judgment. Humans judge. Our creator, the supreme being, whatever you believe to be the creator of us and our universe, does not judge. There is no judgment. So I'm going, so why did I spend all those years focused on finding meaning in my life, having a purpose-driven life, all of those kinds of things? So I was lost for several years, and I was angry because I thought, well, somebody changed the game. The game that I was playing was not the game that exists in the whole scheme of things. And so I felt ripped off, quite frankly. And in addition to that, then I was curious and I'm thinking, well, what have I missed here? Like, how do I move forward from this? Well, life is like that. When we get what we might call a significant emotional event, it smacks us like a 2x4 right in the middle of the forehead and causes us to really think. It hurt because I didn't really know where to go. I was pretty lost. Well, on my bookshelf, I had a copy of one of Neale Donald Walsh's books called Communion with God. And for some reason, I picked it up again. I had already read it and I enjoyed it, but I thought maybe there's something in here. So this was one of those little divinely guided bits that caused me to pick up that book and start reading. Well, I get a certain way through the book, and there's one particular sentence in there that starts, "There is no meaning to life." And I'm going, not this again. See, that's what I experienced when I was on the other side. There is no meaning to life. So now what am I supposed to do? Well, I had my little internal rant, and then I kept reading, and it said, accept the meaning that you give it. I'm going, what? Oh, so part of my reason for doing what I did in life was because it had meaning for me. And I'm going, oh, that's not the only reason that I did it. But it was a big reason that I had done what I had done up to that point, because it had meaning for me. I was doing things that gave me meaning in my life, that helped make my life make sense. It wasn't the typical hustle and grind and scrabble for the next dollar or the next meal, or that part of my life that I was contributing in the way that I felt driven to contribute was what was giving me my meaning in life. So I'm going, oh, so I was really comforted by that. So I kept reading because, oh, okay, here's a little nugget that was really important for me. So the next nugget was there is no purpose to life. I'm going, oh yeah, tell me again. There is no purpose to life except the purpose that you bring to it. Oh, another huge nugget for me. So what I drew from that, what I concluded from all of that was that the meaning I had been seeking and working to apply in my life, the purpose that I felt was important to me in my life was not for naught. Like that was a good thing for me to have been doing. I just was doing it for the wrong reasons. That I was, some of it I was doing for the right reason, but a lot of it was for this, okay, where's my ticket to heaven? And I want to make sure that I get in. And so I'll just keep stacking up these things. No, 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 no. What I was doing brought me joy. What I was contributing felt right to me and gave me a sense of well-being that I doubt I would have had if I had not been going down that path. So then it was up to me to say, all right, what now? Where am I going now? Well, it took some time for me to sort that out. And now here I am in the Magnificence Lab, encouraging, inspiring, doing what I can to help people understand, help you understand how magnificent you are. And along with that, how easy it is for you to just accept that your place at the heavenly table is set. You have a chair with your name on it. And all you need to do is accept that that's there for you, pull out your chair and sit down and enjoy the feast. I mean, or not. I mean, that's your choice, right? But I really recommend that you decide to partake of the bounty that is there for all of us. It's just that we've had generations of training and ideas and mistaken beliefs and old programs that have maybe pushed us or pulled us in certain directions. And then we come to a point where we say, is that really true? How does that resonate from a heart space? So the other thing that I want to leave you with is the idea that heaven is not a place. Heaven is a state of being. And where does heaven reside? Right inside us, in our heart space. You know, if you've done any meditation and had some success with that level of peace and contentment and little bubbles of joy that are there, that it's comforting, it's rewarding. Well, guess what? That's heaven. That is heaven. The laughter of a child and the delight you have in hearing that, the magnificence of lakes and rivers and you're looking out over this expanse and it warms you and you feel bigger and fuller and richer for having experienced that. That's heaven. It's as simple as that. You can go there anytime you choose. I go frequently because let's face it, our human world right now is a little chaotic. So this is respite. This is an opportunity to say that's not all we are. That's not really who we are. We're not our experiences. We're not our failures. We're not our successes. We're not the amount of money in our bank account or the lack thereof. We're not our bills. We are magnificent beings experiencing humanity, living our lives with full opportunity to embrace the heaven within us and experience that on a daily basis, on a moment-to-moment basis. Are there things that get in the way? Sure there are. And if you want to explore those a little more, I invite you to come to the Magnificence Lab. It's a website, magnificencelab.org. And there you'll find podcasts about some of what we wrestle with in the lab to begin to awaken to our magnificence and move forward. I offer a free once a month workshop on, I call it Pathways to Magnificence, where you can register through the website and just come on board I think we're doing it the first Tuesday of the month starting in September. So you're welcome to register and weigh in on the virtual conversation that we're having that month. In the meantime, my magnificent friends, oh, something happened with my connection. And anyway, we're finishing off here. I look forward to seeing you next time on our Heaven on Earth series.